If there's no spice on Arrakis, then no Kamala for you. Welcome back to Mars on Life. I am your
Fucking
Muad'Dib.
hate you. Hate you.
I am your Muad'Dib, Ryan Mancini, and joined with me as always, the Kwisatz Haderach.
Oh my god. I'm Sebastian Shug. I guess. I mean, what kind of title was that? What kind of not intro, but what kind of um God, I don't even know the right word for it.
What kind of intro was it? It's
No,
related to
no, no,
Dune.
no, no. It was definitely an intro, but it was like, yeah, what kind of title is that? Like, did I?
Muad'Dib.
Yeah.
It
What
loosely.
did you bestow upon me is what I'm
Oh,
asking.
for you. Well,
Yeah.
you basically got the title of the chosen one, because in the Dune universe they have their own Jedi, but they're a sisterhood called the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood, and their goal is to create this chosen one who's basically going to dominate the universe. And Paul Atreides becomes the Kwisatz Haderach, and he then ultimately becomes Muad'Dib, which is the name that the Fremen, who are basically the free folk on Arrakis, the indigenous population, that's the title they give him.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and then he starts his jihad and worms, baby. Movie is so good. Oh my god. Or at least the 1984 movie, since we're likely not going to get the Timothy Chalamet version this year, with Denis Villeneuve. News happened this week, Sebastian. Some big news. One might say historic news.
Oh, God, I fucking hate politics. And more to the point, I just hate analyzing them, man. Like, I know that this is our show and it's what we do and it's what we talk about, but my God. You know, the world spun a lot smoother when everyone didn't have such a fucking chip on their shoulder, you know? And it's not that people don't know what they're talking about, because
Oh
they
yeah.
don't. And in hindsight, I would say that less people do than they don't.
Hmm.
But, you know, we were talking about this yesterday, and I just kind of went full Citizen Kane rant where it was just like, you know, what fuck's the point, really?
Hmm.
And it really just pisses the shit out of me. It really does, because I can't even stand in vehement support of anything
Yeah.
anymore. Because, you know, hating something is the easiest thing. You know, being in support of something is the hardest, because it's like, you know, answer right and I'll let you
Hmm.
live, but answer wrong and, you know, hell hath no fury. But it's um
Like a San Francisco prosecutor
it,
scorned.
in recent
Oh!
in recent news, Kamala Harris is the right hand woman. I'm sorry, I was about to say the other word that deeply offends people to the core. Right hand woman to good old let's touch kids on the shoulder, Joe Biden. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Personally, I can't. What are people going to spin the argument that, oh, Kamala Harris, she's such a rigorous prosecutor that she's going to be locking up her own people in jail? Yeah, I could. It's already been said though.
In regards to the news, it is what it is. I
Episode over. Yeah, it is what it is. It's been is what it is since
like
March.
there like I'll put
Okay.
it this way. There's
So
well, let's face it, there's nothing to really analyze about it. Like when the news hit,
no, you can
I
make
I was kind of like, all right, that's because ultimately, Biden, an argument can be made that Biden put himself in a corner when he said that he was going to choose a woman to be his VP. Now, you know, I kind of look at it like, you know what? It's a roll of the dice at the end of the day, regardless who your VP is. You just need to make sure you don't pick somebody who's absolutely miserably boring. And that was what Hillary did 4 years ago. She picked Tim Kaine, who literally the only thing the guy could do outside of looking like Wonder Bread was speak Spanish. And he didn't move the needle whatsoever, but that's what happens when you have a soulless campaign. Biden has to tap into what is going on right now, or he is going to lose support just as badly as Hillary did. The fact of the matter is that he isn't. And some of that may be in part because of sexism. I just think it's because Biden doesn't have the kind of baggage that Mrs. Clinton had. But, you know, at the end of the day, okay, all right, we got our VP choice. I just want the election to finally get here.
Well, like, I just want it to be over.
This pussyfooting around, I just want it done.
Ever since 2016, you know, when I think people our age, you know, you're a little bit older than me, but in 2016, I was a senior in high school. And that's when everyone started to get into politics one way or another. And we wouldn't so much have political debates as we would this kind of, it was almost like political theater as we were waiting in anticipation for November, because it was like, okay, we were too young to understand what Bush Jr. did, but we were old enough to realize that, oh, Obama, you know, he did so much for our country. And if you speak to any Republican nowadays, you'd kind of get the idea that, he really didn't do all that.
Yeah, but even if you ask socialists or leftists they'll tell you that Obama was kind of a nothing burger president.
Exactly.
And
so now we
got some points there.
So now we go into 2016 where you're old enough to understand the difference and sort of just come up with a concise point. And the 2016 to 2020 timeline, you know, you want to say, if divisive isn't too strong of a word, how about just hell bent on just, I can't even like formulate a sentence to how pissed off this makes me. And it's not even the politics that does it. It's the superiority complex that people have when they do it.
Yeah.
I voiced this in episodes previous, and I'll fucking voice it again. I don't care. There's a reason why I don't get so involved in politics. There's a reason why I quit poli-sci as my major, and this is the fuck why. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, and if you want to, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, because
by all means.
It's the right versus left mentality that obviously is going to cause the divide. But when you have the quasi-intellectual TikTok girls on Instagram sharing these posts like, oh, so you want to talk about XYZ, sweetie? I have one that'll really kind of start a conversation here. So this one's called, So You Want to Talk About Apoliticism, which to a degree, I often side with, because I don't fucking care, Ryan. I really don't. You know, and I'm not saying this as, you know, I'm a white man living in the suburbs and this is just my boomer ignorance sticking out. It's like, dude, this just simply doesn't interest me. Okay. Right. And if you want to hit me with well, it should. Have you seen what's happening in the country right now? Yeah, I see it. And it's nauseatingly exhausting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is. Oh, it's, I mean, I think I've told you this before, that I've pretty much given up on any kind of modern day political theory or political reading outside of leftism, only because, number one, I don't need a reminder of how crappy this time period is. And number two, I don't need a reminder of how incompetent our leadership in this country is. It's like, I think I basically told you last night, we're living in a hellscape. I treat history as actual politics, because there's actual people politicking, whereas now it's just burps and hisses and honks coming from a dang Tito.
Let me go into this post here, because it's one of those that you swipe through, and the person who shared this, I'm obviously not going to name names, but she is very woke to the furthest stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of leftism that I think would even sicken you. Okay, so you want to talk about apoliticism. If you don't care who the president is, don't belong to a political party, aren't registered to vote, and or don't care about political issues, you are called apolitical. Now, this is completely negating one's own personal choice not to engage, but let's read on. And then it just shows a name tag. Hello, my name is Privilege. To be apolitical is to be quite privileged. Okay. You can tell that to the minorities that choose to identify themselves as apolitical. What do you call that? But anyway, choosing to disengage from politics is a luxury, Mancini. And like most luxuries, it is not afforded to everyone. Right now in America, 38.1 million people live in poverty. 500,000 plus are homeless on any given night. Okay, the statistics of why you should feel bad that you are the way you are because you're reading this on a smartphone. All of this is political.
Yeah.
Do you realize how many things are rooted in politics? The economy, the environment, social issues, human rights, healthcare, retirement, religious freedom, privacy laws, law enforcement, immigration, the media, childcare, schooling, public transportation. The way in which we are able to conduct our lives is political. Now, if you want to view your life through such a tunnel-visioned, dogshit sentiment, as in you have to analyze everything political. We are going to put you in a box, and God damn it, you're not getting out of this box. Okay, is that a way of life you want to live?
I mean, for myself, no.
Okay.
However, if I'll put it this way, because there's so many facets to this, but I'll let you finish your point before I.
The way in which we are able to conduct our lives is political. The way we shop, the way we eat, the way we consume information, the choice whether or not we even want. The choice of whether or not we even want to do these things, it's all political. So.
Yep.
So your choice not to simply not make art for some reason, that's political. Okay. I like to stay out of it, a lot of people say. Do you? This is the response. Do you? Even being able to speak those words is political. That's your right under the First Amendment. The First Amendment was adopted on December 15th, 17... Okay, it's a bunch of bullshit. I read this in a history textbook. Why are you telling me this? Of course it's my first fucking amendment. Okay? It doesn't impact me. Yes, it does. Oh, okay. Tell me, quirky TikTok girl, how does it not impact me, or how does it impact me? Yes, it does. Politics impact everyone, whether or not you like it. One of the very principles of our very democracy is citizen involvement in decision making. Do you truly think that ignoring your right to contribute in decisions being made will impact you positively? Participating in the process gives you a voice. Use it. Now, of course, don't use it to vote for the right. Okay, that's not what's being said here. Okay. Use it to vote this way and only this way. Otherwise,
I have to push back on that, because what I see, especially from my neck of the woods, where
this is not a page that endorses Donald Trump or any of the Republican sentiment in any way, shape, or form. Okay, you understand looking at this page what you're going into, as well as what this page supports. Okay.
Right.
So, I want to talk about apoliticism when really I'm genuinely not interested in politics. And I'm not saying this as myself, because deep down I believe that I am. But when you shovel this in my mouth to such a degree that I'm no longer hungry, I'm going to throw up, and I'm not going to want any more. Okay, I think that there is such a thing as too much. And really, I do have to ask the question to those acting upon this political impulse, is that what is your level of satisfaction at the end of the day? I realize that you can do a lot for social media, but when you're continually doing so at such a rate and at such a veracity that I'm continuously getting more and more angry, then what is really happening up there that's fulfilling you?
There's so many ways to approach this. I don't know if I even have enough time, but you have the facets where you have, like, if I'm going to zero in on where I live, you have your group of adults and older people who have basically been following the exact same elections for years, and they keep rooting for the same candidates that keep losing. That's the most overly simplified way I can put it, is that you have the people that basically live by the Einstein maxim of let's keep repeating the same mistakes because one day it'll be different. And it's like, no, that's how you keep losing elections if you do that. On the flip side, you then have these newer young groups of people who, I have to say, a lot of them, I genuinely, truly admire them for the fact that they're only now. I mean, I admire them, but I'm also a little bit frustrated at the fact that, okay, it's only now that you're becoming more involved in politics. But then after that, it's wondering, okay, so all of you new people who got in the game in part because of what's been going on basically ever since Memorial Day, what are you doing in order to reach out and build a coalition with other groups that have basically already been putting in the hard work long before you came on the scene? And my hope is that there's enough people out there that actually decide to form those coalitions. Historically speaking, though, left-wing coalitions don't last very long, and that's just simply in part because of infighting, and you can never get people to really agree with each other. But that's historically because with leftism, there are so many paths you can go, whereas with, being a Democrat or being a Republican, with being a Democrat, you're limited. With being a Republican, you could be as fascy as Rome was in 1936. So it's kind of like you basically just need to get off a high horse. And this isn't you, obviously. This is basically the people that don't realize that in a lot of ways you can have political fights that are a lifetime struggle. I know people in other countries that it's been their lifetime struggle, but that's because they've never been able to live peacefully because they've been targeted, i.e., loved ones I know who had to leave Brazil because of its dictatorship back in the day. And I think in our country, we've got a wannabe fascist president, but that's just it. He's a wannabe. So it's not like, and this kind of goes into our main topic, which is this is where we get into the whole nonsense of resistance and, people that think we're fighting in this great big revolutionary cause. The problem is that you're stealing language that's pre-existing, and you're ignoring the people that were already committing political action in the name of revolution, i.e., Bernie Sanders, and you're basically hopping in at the last second saying, "Oh, listen, Jack, we need to have that guy from Delaware in because he can really take care of the Cheeto. Him and his wife, Dr. Joe Biden. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I apologize." Like,
right. I think deep down, what a lot of Middle America wants is for there to be some kind of a boogaloo, because it would get the middle moms and dads of America really gung ho about supporting this president. And
this Donald Trump or
yeah,
Joe Biden?
no, yeah, because what I'm seeing personally is a lost cause. Okay. I did not see Joe Biden, and this is speaking from someone who is, like I said, I don't identify with a political party, and I guess that makes me Hitler, but I'll continue. I don't identify with a political party simply because I know what these political parties are versus maybe what they were pre-2016 when there wasn't so much firepower behind two of them. Okay. On paper, do I agree that these policies, both sides of the aisle, work? Absolutely, because they have. Okay. But if you're going to ask me what I stand for and then put a gun to my head when you don't like my answer, or hand me a gun and say, go shoot that guy that doesn't agree with you, then that's kind of where I draw the line in. Okay, what do you really want out of arguing with someone? Okay, it sounds to me like you just want to put them out of commission. And if that's the case, maybe you need a lot more help than your Facebook timeline would showcase.
Yeah. I think going to the point about with Kamala, it's, I mean, is it cool to see somebody from the state of California now is going to be on the ballot? I mean,
Yeah.
it's cool, I guess. I mean, as somebody that treats California the same way Robert E. Lee treats Virginia, I mean, yeah. But outside of that, you know what? She's got a horrific track record with people of color, and frankly, at this point, Biden needs her only in the sense that she might be able to wrangle in votes that Hillary Clinton didn't get, but Barack Obama did, i.e. African Americans.
And that's
however, it's problematic because of her record.
How much do you have to reach to do something like that? You really nabbed it with the whole, I'm going to get Kamala, but let's not focus on her past. Okay.
Right.
And, to think that Biden did it, it just kind of bothers me that he would hire someone like Kamala to be his right-hand woman and just be like, oh, well, that's in the past, like she wouldn't do it again kind of thing. And I know we joked about it last night. It's like, yeah, you really shot that vote in the foot when you now realize that she's going to have to essentially
be the 47th president.
Well, no, you don't expect to see it, but it happens. And now we can make the prediction like, oh, is this going to happen with Kamala as, number 2?
I'll wait until our election episodes to give my full view on how exactly I think it's going to play out between a Biden-Harris ticket and Trump and possibly somebody else, because he likes toying as much as he loves Mike Pence. Trump also loves toying with the idea of having somebody else as his VP. So I don't. I'm right now. I'm not even considering Mike Pence as a lock for the Republican nomination for vice president. But I think that you obviously, and this is where I kind of have to put my analyst hat on. You got to look at the situation, i.e., people are protesting in the streets against systemic racism coming out from our government, and there's a black woman on the ticket for basically unseating the dang Cheeto. I think if you didn't have the baggage of Donald Trump being the racist thug that he is, and then also coronavirus, easily, he would have gotten 4 more years. But given how the year has gone, and given the fact that Kamala is in, number one, out of all the choices, I think she was probably the one with the least baggage and arguably the most recognizable. Because let me tell you, Susan Rice, 4 more years of Cheeto.
I don't know.
Susan Rice is
when Tulsi crossed the aisle, that was pretty eye-opening. But it's like she's still a registered Democrat.
Tulsi would sacrifice this country in a heartbeat if it meant saving a dictator. I don't have any faith or trust in her.
You really think that she's like gone full right wing?
Well, I think. I have heard rumblings that she might be heading to Fox News once she's done with her House seat. So you know what? I'm not holding my breath.
You gotta go to where the money is, man. It's not like it's like, what do you want? The country's in peril.
But there's not a lot of sympathy for. At least I want to think this way. I don't think there's enough sympathy for Republicans coming from either moderates or, even more conservative Democrats. It's just kind of shaping up to potentially be another blue wave. It's just whether or not that's going to matter for the White House. But to our main point, and obviously we can kind of blend these two a little bit if we want. We kind of did. Something that has been grinding my gears for a while now has been this use of obviously we talked about Hamilton a while back. If you want, we'll put the episode in the description for this episode, our Hamilton spiel. But we have to talk about it again because I feel like in regards to the election, and given that we're in a world right now where there is literally no art, like People are still
No,
making
art.
stuff at home.
No,
People are,
art. Okay. I'll let you. I'll let you finish.
okay,
But
okay.
I'm
Because
going to dispel a rumor,
I,
a big rumor. Okay.
uh-oh.
Yeah. But please
Because
continue.
but I'll put it. And the reason why I say that is simply because of the fact that we're culturally bereft right now. I mean, we had
Wait,
Tiger King.
so you're saying that the posts, the art, the movies, the political commentary, all that didn't end what's going on in the world right now?
Ding, 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 ding. You are
Fuck!
correct. No,
Fuck!
basically, my point is that we're so
It,
bankrupt creatively. The point that I'm getting at is that people like to use Hamilton, this bastion of capitalism and standing up to monarchy, as almost an analogy for basically some kind of made up political fight between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I have to say, I find it to be some of the most pedantic and totally historically ignorant thinking that we could potentially have right now. Because the idea that, we're living in times much like Hamilton's, get the hell out of here with that. Like,
well, I
it's not.
remember, sorry to cut you off. I remember when I was really big in high school into conservative talk radio. And while that kind of faded, there was one quote that I remember hearing from a talk show host. And he was arguing with a caller. And basically, the caller was going off about how, oh, this country needs to be paid for by the government. It's conservative talk radio. Obviously, he's going to argue with him. And he said, the radio host said, what are you going to gain from a socialist revolution? What? Are you going to be made into a general? And I think about that quote a lot because a lot of people have the expectation of creating something or having an opinion, standing by it, and thinking that that is going to be your golden ticket to notoriety. Okay.
Yeah.
And I can't fucking stand that because there's millions of yahoos thinking that they can do that and basically skate by.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're exactly right. What is in comparing this 21st century to Hamilton, what are you going to get out of it? Are you going to rise in the ranks like Hamilton will? Fucking no, okay? Because the little Z-list celebrity artist journalist, I'm sorry, but we gotta run over everyone with this bus here. The people that A, don't know what they're doing, and B, don't really have a platform to stand on, which is unfortunate because I know a lot of people who work their asses off and don't really know how to gain that audience.
Yeah.
But C, and what really fucking pisses me off, the ignorance in thinking that they're bigger than they are. That is the reason why they're nobodies, okay? And unfortunately, that's the reason why they're going to stay nobodies and be bitter when they watch Hamilton thinking, I can do that, when they can't, okay?
Right. I mean, it's because what I find irritating with it is just the fact that because obviously, having gone through this whole moment, going back to when George Floyd was murdered, where people started having far more discussions about race, about history, about racism's place in American history, about slavery, about the Civil War. There's a lot of those discussions that are being had, and I can't be any more thankful that those conversations are happening as somebody who's been a history nerd and has basically I've come to the realization that I feel like I'm one of the last people that actually learns history in order to not repeat it, while everybody else is basically committing themselves to repeating it, i.e., the Trump administration setting up concentration camps along the southern border. That's not a good idea. But then on the left, i.e., liberals in particular, using these people that were not democratic in the slightest, and using them as these pedestals to basically explain why they hate Donald Trump. It's like, No.
Nancy, I
But,
made my 1,000th
uh,
Trump joke at Trump's expense. Okay, why am I not elevated in society? Okay, answer me.
well, to
This
finish
is
my
the
point,
yeah. I'm sorry, but this is the logic people have. Is what I'm saying.
well, it's just baffling to me because again, it's like, okay, so you don't like Trump because he's a racist. Fine. Who do you like? Oh, I like George Washington. The guy owned people as
Yeah.
chattel. Like Thomas Jefferson, or you could easily give him the nickname Thomas Jeffrey Epstein. His basically his sexual relationship, if that's even the best way to describe it, with his sister-in-law Sally Hemings. She was 14, for crying out loud. And obviously Hamilton doesn't paint Jefferson in that good of a light. He is kind of a blowhard and kind of a cartoonish character, which I'm totally okay with and I accept it. And it's almost like if people had a brain and if they could just sit down and read something like, for example, Gore Vidal's book, Burr. Yeah, these were some of the smartest people that we've ever had in our history, but we've also never seen them since. And frankly, that's a good thing because these were the same people that were more than willing to make us far different than what we eventually became as a country, i.e., Jefferson expanding territory, i.e., the fact that we had a cult of personality in our first election, and that's why George Washington basically won unanimously. It's kind of like there's so many of these issues where I'm like, if you guys will just simply learn the history, you will realize how facile you sound and juvenile when you're equating the actions of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr and George Washington with the actions of Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and I guess now Kamala Harris. It's kind of like it goes back to an analogy I used to make about the 2016 election. You're basically choosing between Emperor Palpatine or Jabba the Hutt. Jabba the Hutt being Donald Trump, Emperor Palpatine being Mrs. Clinton. So basically, either way, you're not getting what you could consider a good guy. But you got to think to yourself, do I want somebody who's actually capable of doing their job? Now, obviously, we know what happens to the Empire and Jabba's palace, but at the same time, the Empire at least kept it going a bit longer than Jabba, don't you think? But again, it boils back to the worst of two evils, which is what I find, and this kind of goes back to our previous discussion, this is why I disassociate with politics, is because it absolutely should never have to be picking the least worst of two evils. And that's what we have right now. It is about picking the least worst of two evils. Or the lesser of two evils, that's the expression. It's and I think for people to idolize these characters of history who have these terrible spots on their records, I mean, for crying out loud, I said this in our Hamilton episode. For everyone who calls himself a socialist and complains about the economy and free market capitalism and neoliberalism, you don't then turn around and say, Hamilton's my boy. Hamilton's part of the reason why we're in this mess in the first place. So it's like it just screams to me ignorance.
These people, and I really hate to sound like every single goddamn conservative radio host when I said that, but these people cannot look past their thick-rimmed glasses and their fucking soy macchiatos to realize that, okay? Because it's like, what reality are you living in? Okay, the San Francisco pod reality doesn't sound that too fulfilling of a lifestyle to me. But if that's your cup of Joe, Biden, then by all means. But don't fucking say that because you idealize XYZ person, the XYZ historical figure, that it's going to elevate you to such a status because you happen to think differently. There's a million other fucking dolts in San Francisco that think the same exact way. And socialism is all about equality. You're still all equally fucking poor. Okay. So I don't know what this groupthink is
Well,
it's
largely
supposed to elevate you to.
right.
Okay.
And I think that's what people need to be realizing because shortly after Kamala's announcement, I heard someone made the argument that, once they get into the Oval Office, they basically need to do what Obama did and utilize their coalition. And the problem with that is Obama did not do that. When Obama got into office, he basically told all of his volunteers and everybody who worked on his campaign that did not get a cabinet or a White House job, he basically told them, thanks for your help. Go home now. I appreciate it, but I need you to go home right now. You heard me? Right now. No. I'm not letting you in. Go home. Go home. And so he did that. Therefore, you got the kind of separation, I guess you could say, between people within the Democratic Party that wanted to take it further left, i.e., we need to talk about the fact that we have a giant class problem in this country that's only going to get worse thanks to the Great Recession. And then you had all the Democratic liberal bigwigs that basically were like, nah, we want to eat our cake. We're finally in the White House. We finally have the House and the Senate. We have the Oval. We're good. That's something I can easily see happening moving forward. And then I turn around and I ask all those Hamilton fans that use Hamilton as basically their Rolodex, I don't know, their political preference. If they're using Hamilton to let that be their drive, then guess what? They're going to feel just like Hamilton because they're not going to be the ones in the room where it happened. They're going to feel so upset and betrayed, but at the end of the day, they're going to be thinking to themselves, you know what? At least it's not Trump. To which I turn around and say, yeah, you could have done better, but instead you settled on Sleepy Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just look at it like, especially after reading Gore Vidal's Burr, in which, George Washington, not a people person, not an effective general, he only was able to seem commanding as a politician out of the fact that he had a whole, junta of Virginia politicos around him to make him look like as though he had a full coup on his hands. And then he left office, and it was kind of like, because by the time he left office, he was riddled with scandal, from the Whiskey Rebellion to, indigenous people pushing back against his boy, Mad Anthony Wayne. I think his name was Mad. No, it wasn't Mad Dog. It was just Mad Anthony. Mad Anthony. Ooh. And Jefferson was just, woe is me, Mr. Beauregard, for 8 years. So you're listening to people that are idolizing some of the psychotic people that have ever lived in our history, but it just so happened that some of them did have at least some good ideas, but not enough. As much as John Adams is my favorite president, he did a lot of things that are Trumpian, I gotta say. But at the same time, he was far more qualified than Donald Trump was for president. And so I just think that the people that are, and this is kind of the best way I can encapsulate using Hamilton as like leverage to basically say this is why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are our only hope, which is basically they'll take lyrics out referring to specific leaders, i.e. swap out King George III with Trump, or swap out Burr with Trump and Hamilton with Biden, and people are singing the lyrics to Hamilton talking about now, like we're living in a revolutionary moment. We are not in a revolutionary moment.
No,
we're in decline.
You are not on the front lines, and the grandiose. I mean, I can't speak for everyone who's gone into the military when they have that sort of burst of adrenaline of and this is coming from someone who genuinely was intrigued of doing so. Way back when, but that feeling wore off really fucking quick because when I realized what I was fighting for was dog shit and would have been dog shit, it was like, I can understand that this is a very group think mentality of you're doing this for a greater good. And it was funny, I actually just got done watching GQ's Jocko Willink's Navy SEAL A Navy SEAL he's a Navy SEAL who breaks down Navy SEAL movies and basically like debunks them. And I'm like, okay, here's a person who I have a lot of respect for because he doesn't let politics get in the way of his discussion, number one. But number two, he's a funny guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was just like I know, it's groupthink because you're a team. And leading back into this discussion, a lot of people would say that, oh, we're in a revolution because it's going to, like I said, give us a sense of class elevation, where it's like, this guy did it just for him, and he's loving his life. Meanwhile, you're here hating your life, thinking that a revolution is going to save you and put you in a better position. It's not, because I guarantee you don't know how to hold a fucking gun. But two, really, what are you hoping to gain from this? You're going to be the one that assassinates the person in power and bring order to this world? No. Okay? You're not.
Well, I think to go back to your previous point about people that make their lives about politics, there's a way to do it without needing to do it within the realms of the two-party system. So basically, what I mean by that is the people that are enraptured by Democratic policy or Republican policy, they're missing the point, because in their mind, it's just, it's what Bob Dylan said. It's another pawn in their game, and it's just a matter of, well, it's basically it's a power struggle, and it's always been about a power struggle. When you're in a political group that is focused on more ground level stuff, like DSA, for example, or any, I have dear friends that work with several of the different nonprofits that are helping the homeless in parts of downtown LA. Obviously, some of them are doing that because of their politics, but they're also doing it because they're realizing that real politics doesn't care for people that are homeless. It doesn't care for the middle class. It doesn't care for people that, are losing their jobs because of coronavirus. It's basically like, hey, we just need you to vote, and that's it.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, as a follow-up, what comes next. Because if your vote is essentially as worthless as a number, because it is what it is, it's a number, okay? Yeah. You are not voting for a president. You are voting for an elector to vote for a president, okay? That's by and large how the Electoral College works, okay?
Yeah.
Your vote, essentially, it's not a one of one. It means nothing, okay?
Oh, right.
I'm not saying that it means nothing in the grand scheme of things, because technically the electors have to vote for who you pick. Not true. This is why a congressman wrote down John E. Words way back when he really meant John Edwards. They can fuck it up. They can fuck it up as the middleman, okay? So, yeah, go ahead, shoot the messenger. But to base your life, more to the point, to base your life over this result of, it doesn't matter who's in office just so long as my team wins. I cannot imagine going through life like that. I cannot imagine that even if your team wins, half of what you want fixed, and if you think that it's going to trickle down to you, that if we elect a Democrat in office, all of my problems, whether it be financial, social, economic, religious, this will all be fixed. It's not.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And, does it sound shitty? Yeah, it does. But people can't let go of this grasp of a political party is going to fix it. Okay? They still think that it can happen. And I don't know if they're touting the whole American dream, I can do it if I just set my mind to it, and the person in office is going to help me get there. God bless our government, rah, rah, rah. Or to the right side of the aisle, fuck the government, I'm going to do it myself. Then that just begs the question, why are both sides equally unfulfilled when they win or lose the election?
And something that these people need to consider, especially in regards to Hamilton, is that there's nothing finite about the story of Alexander Hamilton outside of the fact that each of these men are mortals. Politics goes on, the fight goes on, and the problem is back then, even though we kept recycling the same people exactly like how we do now, there was more of a likelihood that those people were probably going to keel over at their desk than now. And so therefore you would have a shakeup where it would no longer be the likes of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Washington, and Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, but then it becomes Daniel Webster, Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, Henry Clay, and John C. Calhoun. But again, the fight keeps going. It's this idea that, once we beat Trump, all our problems are going to be over.
No,
you know
they're
what?
Not. They're not.
I'll put it this way. If Biden wins, it's hard for me not to think, and I know this might sound like a betrayal of my own principles in a way, but if Biden wins, and I'm going to say if now until we actually have results, but I will admit, I will think to myself, well, I guess I can see some light at the end of the tunnel. But is that light going to be anything eventually? Probably not.
Is that
because
light...
we're so fucked beyond the point of no return that it's hard for me to really think we're ever going to get out of the rut that we've stuck ourselves in, because enough stupid people thought, yeah, a big racist blowhard who knows nothing about politics is perfect to be president.
Is that light at the end of the tunnel, whether or not it's going to be there or not, impede your day-to-day activities?
Oh, God, no. Oh, no way. I mean,
and I ask this because a lot of people go into this sort of political discourse thinking that it will.
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually asked Middle America what they thought about the presidential election, I know that they would be gung-ho with their opinions. But as much as I really... Actually, no, I don't hate to be this way because it's how I act. With the sun coming up every single morning and just sort of realizing it and moving on. I've got it in my head, and it isn't support for President Trump, that if he wins, what are we going to do? Aside from just move on. And if Biden wins, are people going to be cheering in the streets saying that everything's fixed, and then realizing 2 years later that, oh, everything isn't fixed, and maybe we elected the wrong guy? No, I don't think you elected the wrong guy. You just set your expectations astronomically to a point where it's like you're never going to be fulfilled. Okay?
Exactly. And that's honestly why I worry about the outcome of the election, is that Hamilton, I'm worried people are using Hamilton to drive their enthusiasm to lead them to disappointment, honestly. Like, thinking you're part of this revolution like you're Alexander Hamilton, guess what? It was not assured that the revolution was going to be won in the 1780s. It wasn't assured at all. In fact, we had our last battle in 1781, and our peace treaty with Great Britain wasn't for another 2 years. So in the amount of time it takes for there to be a president elected and midterms, you went from the last battle to the treaty. It wasn't an overnight sensation, So it's like the people that are getting overly excited about Biden, number one, why? And number two, really? And number three, if people really cared, we wouldn't have trapped ourselves in this situation where we're choosing between Donald Trump and, of all people, Joe Biden.
Well, like we had to choose between Donald Trump and, of all people, Hillary Clinton. Okay, we were screwed 4 years ago. All right?
Exactly.
So then that begs the question, when are we going to have competent candidates?
Yeah. No, that's a great question.
No, really.
I genuinely don't know.
Because it's like, if you're gonna sit here and put a gun to my head and say vote for this pile of shit or this bag of puke, it's like, okay, well, there really is no right answer here, because something about each of the candidates is gonna make you pissed off at me. Okay.
Yep.
And unfortunately, as much as I think what a lot of people want to do is think independently and just kind of go down the middle of the aisle, guess what? You're never going to have a political party that encompasses that. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Green
Yeah.
Party, Reform, Tea, fucking Bull Moose. I don't care what you go, as long as it's not Democrat, Republican, you're never going to see it. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame that you're even given the option, as if there's this faintest glimmer of hope that someone like, I don't know, fucking Gary Johnson or Jill Green, fuck, what was the Green Party candidate?
Jill Stein.
Jill Stein. Yeah, it gives you the faintest glimmer of hope that it can happen when you know deep down it won't.
Yeah.
And that's really the sad part. It isn't just a lost vote or a wasted vote. It's just my dream is shattered, because this is literally in many ways the best of both worlds to my own personal discretion. And now I have to choose one radical opposite or another, or another.
There was a while back, long before COVID, this was published by the LA Times at the end of January of this year, with the headline of, and it's got nothing to do with COVID, it's got nothing to do with the Biden campaign, but the headline says, what are Democrats and Republicans standing Hamilton amid impeachment? Or why are Democrats and Republicans standing Hamilton amid impeachment? And there's one quote in here that says a lot to me in regards to why people are taking on Hamilton in such a way that, again, maybe this is the mercy in part because of the show, or maybe people have actually done the homework. I highly doubt the second. But it says here, there's who is this person? A professor from the University of Utah, Elizabeth Kraft, who said, the bootstraps narrative is appealing to Republicans, while Democrats embrace the multicultural and multiracial cast. While the musical highlights the ethical battle over slavery, it ignores the role of luck and privilege in moving up in society, Donatella Galella, a professor at UC Riverside, said in an interview. And while the musical is hailed as progressive, some academics have also criticized it for omitting racial minorities and for how Hamilton seized some of his fortune. So, again, it's going back to
people just cannot be satisfied with that.
It's just, again, it's to me, it's just so mind-boggling, and yet at the same time it isn't, because I know this country better than most Americans, which is we never, ever, ever seem to learn from our history. And so, but again, this is also inherent in liberalism. The idea is these were people like the founders. These were people that were living in times where they were beginning to set the wheels in motion for what we have today, and it continues to work that way, but there's some problems that need to be fixed. Realistically, it's more like, no, the founders set up a system that they intentionally wanted, i.e., making sure that elections were decided by white men with property. Our earliest elections had some of the lowest turnout in American electoral history. And so every kind of amendment that we have made, whether it's been in regards to getting rid of slavery, giving women the right to vote, which I know the anniversary for that is coming up very shortly, and on top of that, every other progressive change that has happened in the last century, that has come up in spite of the founders, in spite of the United States. It's not because, Hamilton knew that one day people of the same sex would want to marry. Of course not. Like, who are you kidding? It's not, you can't fit these men within our worldview because they don't fit in it. How would Benjamin Franklin react to an AR-15? How would John Adams react to an atomic bomb? Like, we're in such a different world right now that to rely on men like that, outside of perhaps John Adams, who I'll argue until the end of time, our best president, these aren't people we want to be analogizing ourselves to. In fact, when I think about myself in this moment, I don't really analogize myself to anybody because we're basically watching the decline of the American empire in super slow motion. And no one's really doing anything about it except the executive branch, and they're kind of helping perpetuate the decline. Yeah. And, whatever's going to happen with a Biden presidency, if there's a Biden presidency, you know what? It's probably going to be a lot like Obama's. The only difference being, Biden's likely not going to run for a second term. He may not even be around for 2024. And so realistically, this is a decision where it's about ensuring the future. The problem, though, is Kamala Harris is not progressive in the slightest. Everyone who says she has a progressive record needs to look up progressive in the dictionary. And then on top of that, they need to look at the records of actual progressives, like somebody like Bernie Sanders, for example, somebody that a lot of liberals like to scoff, but then they turn around and call themselves a progressive. It's like, oh, come on. You don't get to pick and choose this. You need to understand that a coalition sometimes means bringing on people that disagree with each other. And to a previous point you made, which ties in with the point that I just made, Kamala had Joe's balls in a vice in the debates. However, that might be a winning strategy. I'm not saying it will win. I'm just saying it could be, because yet again, we go back to Barack Obama. He was obsessed with the whole team of rivals idea, which was a concept that began realistically with Lincoln. And in some ways he lived up to that, and in some ways he really failed on that. But that incorporated bringing people in like Hillary Clinton, who, was a racist to him during the 2008 campaign, and yet she got to be Secretary of State, and she got Obama's blessing when she ran in 2016. So It's kind of like, of course Kamala is going to be vice president, because Biden's going to look at her and think, well, clearly you know how to handle some of this stuff better than I can. I'm going to let you be VP, and then once your time comes, I need you to be prepared for it. And mind you, she's only the freshman senator of our state, but you know what? So was Barack Obama.
Yeah, and until then, we could end that by saying, till then, she's got the black vote locked up. So make of that what you will.
Oh my God!
I would repeat what
our buddy Kenny said, but I'm gonna save that if we do. No,
I actually got that from him.
Oh God!
Yeah, it's less on the nose than the Kamala Harris Monopoly board, where every single spaces go to jail. But
yeah,
I like quips, So
I do too. And speaking of which, I gotta make this very quick point, totally unrelated to what we were just talking about. You know what amazes me about seltzers, like hard seltzers? You've given people in our warped ass present, and potentially even the future, a new reason to use the word seltzer. That's a word that's roughly 70 years old with a functional history dating back to 1730. And yet we're still saying the word seltzer. I don't know. It was just kind of a Jerry Seinfeld moment that I had.
What would you have rather called it besides, alcohol?
I don't know. I mean,
you got to come up with creative names for it, but it's neither creative nor is it really a name, because all it implies is fizzy water.
Exactly. And realistically, an alternative would have to have been something along the lines of I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Hard sparkling water.
Yeah, but hard sparkling water doesn't exist. It's just you could call it.
Freeze it.
Well, you could call it hard water, but then again, I'd be like,
that also just sounds weird.
Yeah, can I just get an alcohol, please?
Yeah.
Can I get 1 6-pack of alcohol, please? Which one? Just any one.
The alcoholic one. Okay. Which alcoholic one? Oh, the one with alcohol. No, it was just a thought that crossed my mind this last week that I was like, damn, we're still using the word seltzer. That's something.
That's something. So what I was saying previously, other than the need for you to get better Wi-Fi in the Dust Bowl you're living in, is the we briefly, very briefly touched upon a point about sort of the artist stereotype amidst this political devastation that has befallen our country. And I'd just like to say, for the record, I have never in my life, and this is just my own personal sentiment towards the topic, I have never in my life met a more toxic community. Thinking that they are doing more for the country because they are who they are and they make what they make, and nothing else. I gotta tell you, I'm here to dispel, at least now, the altruistic, artistic trope has long gone. Okay, I am now seeing more people clamoring for having their, art most recognized, or being showcased, or having this political opinion or that political opinion. The apoliticism meme, well, not the meme, but like the scrolling thing that I mentioned earlier, that was one of them. I think it's very much taken the approach of like, it's propaganda to a very violent degree, visually violent degree, and it's like I'm kind of pulling a bit of an Arthur here when I say this, a Joker when I say this, where it's like, it is what it is, and I'm tired of pretending that it isn't, because I have seen some of the most narcissistic personalities existing nowadays. Yeah, I just wanted to get that off my chest, because it's like, I am so sick and tired of people opening up these Etsy shops and these mom and pop shops thinking that they're hot shit and that their shit don't stink because they're doing it for a cause, when in actuality they are they're hemorrhaging this shit. They're utilizing this platform in order to sell more shit when half of them aren't even black. Okay.
Right.
And I get the support and I get the solidarity, but it's like, bro, how many more makeshift earrings and pins can we stomach?
Well, and I think what you're tapping into is
I'm tapping into a nerve, I'm sure. Well, I'd like to hear your opinion on it, because I'm all for creative expression, but it's like, dude, we mentioned this in I think our second or third episode. You have to read the market, and you cannot be pissed when your stuff does not sell.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I think for right now, it's obviously, and I know that our show has been about artists and what they do, and I think and how their work reflects our society. But the thing is that we've hit this point where, with more and more and more people becoming more active in both the political sense, but also they're spending a little more time on social media and they're acknowledging what's going on around them a little bit more. While there's an element to that is certainly admirable, and I know that we know some folks that have gone ham in terms of, their political activism as well as their attempt, I guess, at being artists. Realistically, though, people need to be taking a lot of this in a more serious way than just continuously recycling the same stuff over and over again that other, activists, or, for the lack of a better term, even some keyboard activists are doing all across the country. And obviously, blame as such could be ascribed to just about anybody, and that's simply because of the fact that we still have a frickin' pandemic going on. I think people need to realize that there is a time where we just need to leave it to the artists, but there's also people where it's like, okay, look, you want to help out. You want to show artwork or help communities or businesses in this crisis that we're in. Great. Go ahead and do that. But guess what? And this ties right in. I love that you asked this question, because this perfectly ties in with the Hamilton discussion, which is that the people that are going out of their way to, talk about businesses, the people that are going out of their way to buying things and basically acting like, well, I need to maintain this part of my life, i.e. being a consumer,
Yeah.
You're helping perpetuate the exact same capitalist
Oh yeah. Oh no.
fuckery that
Oh
got
yeah.
us where we're at.
What
And you're
what
continuing
makes
to, as
me
people are dying and losing their jobs. And that's where people need to start thinking to themselves, are they doing it out of a sense of, I know the end is near? Or are they doing it because they're still so self-obsessed with shopping that they're willing to spend it all, just because that's the only part of their old lives they can continue to do
we can say
or live?
this, you supporting small businesses is not going to end what's going on in the world. And your vehement support, it's almost nauseating how much of a support it is, because it's like they almost think that they can craft and spend their way out of this pandemic.
Yeah.
Some people make amazing stuff, okay? My girlfriend especially, and I'm not dogging on her. I'm dogging on the people specifically that think that this is something that could be profited upon because we're stuck inside and we have nothing else to do. And it's like, okay, you're really cranking the old cerebellum there with the whole thinking juice in regards to, like, you have literally the entire world at your fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
And you choose to engage it in the most, like you said in the beginning, pedantic bullshit that I've ever seen.
Yep.
And I could forgive it all, Mancini. I could forgive it all if it wasn't for the attitude.
Yeah.
You need to support small businesses, Mancini. It's not a matter of like preference, because, not gonna lie, most people can't afford the prices that these people are charging.
Yeah.
And for what? Because you hot glued some things together and you think that that's making a difference? No, it's
Yeah.
only filling your pocket. Okay?
Well, there's a couple points to that I want to make, and then there's a similar, my final point in regards to artists and what they're doing in times like these, or at least artists that I follow who I think are doing exactly what they should be doing. But before I get to that, I'll just briefly say, for me personally, I've been outside of a few things here and there. Like, I'll admit I've made some purchases. I've bought some books, but I'm also doing some of this stuff out of the sense that, we talked about it in our episode regarding Amazon versus Bookshop. I would rather buy a book on Bookshop knowing that a part of my payment is going to go to a bookshop, an indie bookshop surviving. I'm fine with that, because the way I see it, we need books. Don't listen to QAnon. We need books. Secondly, I do it out of a sense of, or at least if I do decide to go out of my way, it is because it's something that I have an affinity towards and I want it to survive, i.e., and I mentioned it last week, LA Taco. I'm a subscriber. I got my LA Taco hat. I'm proud to wear that hat. But I'm doing it out of the sense that this is a part of my industry, my craft, my field, and I absolutely cannot afford to let it die. And, I think that that's where we need to think, where our thinking needs to be in terms of spending, because frankly, we really shouldn't be spending. However, obviously on certain things, especially for medicinal purposes for some of us, it's a good thing, and it's something that at least, we never feel like we're running out of the kinds of things that, make us basically get us through this pandemic and quarantine. But it's also just simply about being smart. On my very last point is in regards to what artists are doing. I think the one person who I feel like has been doing the most crucial and helpful job in being an artist, but also being of the political mindset, so much so that he was even helping Bernie volunteers during the primary, and that's Matt Chrisman from Chapo Trap House. The guy has been doing live streams on Twitch and Instagram, and I got to tell you, it's some of the most insightful stuff you're ever going to hear, but it's also damn funny because it's coming from a guy who really doesn't care how this election turns out, other than the fact that if Biden wins, at least it'll be funny. But outside of that, it's kind of like we're reaching this point where we're all going to become nihilists, and
I'm already there. Have you seen my short film? And with that, where can the good people find you?
Oh my God. So You can find me on Instagram at Mancini Ryan. You can see me photobombing the 47th President of the United States in one of my recent posts. And when it comes to Twitter, where I continue to think, my God, this website, it just can't get any worse, can it? And then it does. You can find me at Mancini RA, and yeah, social media. My God, I don't know why I continue to go back to it. That's kind of what it's like, where I go onto social media and then I'm like, oh, that's right. I come on here to remind myself that it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Close. Back to you, Schugzy.
Instagram, Dr. Sebi. Fuck Twitter. Dr._Sebi. See, I'm getting more brief each time it goes around, because it's like I can't even log on to Twitter without Gmail thinking that someone hacked my account. Great fucking service you got there. But B, just being so pissed off. Like, genuinely, what am I supposed to contribute to the site? Like, really?
Yeah.
Someone answer me. What is a not even a good contribution, a modest contribution to this site, okay,
Yep.
that hasn't already been done to death, which is about every joke you'd find on Twitter.
Yeah.
Porn, because Tumblr banned it, or some half-assed political opinion that, we just spent an hour and a half fucking talking about. So, what is there of substance is my question. Nothing. But the good news is, if you actually want substance, you could find me narrating daily narrations on my YouTube channel at Seabass. That can also be found on Anchor as a podcast as well. It's sort of an audio archive. Schugzy Storytime. It's actually doing really well. I'm very surprised. Like 600 plays. I know that that's just a number, but I don't know. It's great to know that, like, it can exist other than on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a fan of music, which, let's be serious, a lot of people are, there's not much to do nowadays, you could find me under the name Schugzy, Schugzy. I have another album that I'm going to be releasing. I was planning on the 15th, but I think I'm just going to say here that it's probably going to be released a lot earlier, because, let's be serious, there's nothing left to do. Yeah. But I recently got into doing a little bit of a secondary project on the side, where I decided to make a short film. You could find that as well on my YouTube, Seabass, Seabass, as well as on my Instagram. The full film, surprisingly, is available on Instagram. I guess they got rid of the whole 15-second limit. And yeah, no, it's 3 minutes. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Amazon will take it. So, yeah, no, more things in the works. It's just, honestly, it's just a matter of finding what is enjoyable. And and I guess in, like, closing, the whole artistic jaded take I was having was really just because people can be so pretentious about making art, and that's not what it's about. Okay, and if you want your art to encapsulate something higher, then you better be ready for people to just dog shit it, because I'm sorry, if you think that your shit don't stink, and it does bad, that's why I focus only on lowbrow, because it's like, hey, what are you gonna do? Throw stones?
Yep.
Fucking that glass house already broke, dude. So have fun. This has been Mars on Life. Thank you very much.
And with that,
thank you for listening to Mars on Life. You can find us over on Instagram and on Twitter at Mars on Life Show. In terms of listening to the show, you can find us wherever podcasts are found. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and Radio Public. Also, don't forget to head on over to the official Mars on Life YouTube channel. That way you can find our full catalog of episodes. Our artwork is done by Zachary Erberich, and our intro music is Space Explorers by Kevin MacLeod. I've been Ryan Mancini. My co-host, as always, is Sebastian Schug. And just remember, if you keep on going, you'll make it to Mars.